Hey everybody, welcome into the back room. I'm Andy Ostroy. We have a very important conversation for you today with political strategist Rachel Bitecofer. We shall chat with Rachel in just a second, but first, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you listening, and we'd love to hear your comments. So email us at backroomandy@gmail.com and or post on our social media, and we'll read some feedback next time. And if you like the podcast, please follow or subscribe and rate and review, and to be notified every time we post a new episode. So let me tell you a little bit about Rachel Bitecofer. She is a political scientist and election forecaster turned political strategist. Rachel's interviews and analysis have been featured by the New York Times, the Washington Post, Salon, Politico, the New Republic, Real Time with Bill Maher, CNN, MSNBC, and many other prominent news sources. She worked with Democratic Party candidates and organizations to implement negative partisanship strategy in the 2020 midterms, and she is the author of the recently released book, Hit 'em Where It Hurts: How to Save Democracy by Beating Republicans at Their Own Game. Rachel, welcome back into the back room.
Hey, it's my pleasure to be back. Thanks for having me.
So I just want to establish at the start of our chat that you are known for your prediction accuracy. For example, you accurately predicted in 2017 all the gains in the Virginia legislature. You accurately predicted the 2018 midterms blue wave. 45 House seats were predicted. They got 41. You predicted Biden's win. And you predicted the sweep of 3 Midwest states in the Democrats' blue wall. I'm sure there are others. But I just want to set the table for what's to come in this conversation. So let's get right into it. It's been 10 days now since the debate and President Joe Biden's dreadful performance. This has led to panicked calls for him to quit. And by the way, an even worse performance by Donald Trump. Just want to set that record straight. He has asserted probably 10 times or more that he's not going anywhere, that he's staying in the race. Where do you land on all this?
I land, as always, I land on the big depth of research that I have in my brain thingy, which is why I'm able to give you such good predictions. And that brain thingy research is my PhD in poli-sci. And just to really dig down on it, my dissertation is on presidential nomination campaigns. I used to teach and research, especially presidential nominations. And here's where I come. Like, I have knowledge that other people didn't have Thursday watching the debate. I'm not a Biden truther or whatever, right? There's no sugarcoating it. Mm-hmm. And I laid out two things that, like, really simple things I for Biden to achieve in his first debate. One of them, the first one was the most important. Prove you're not brain dead and don't have dementia. Well, we all know how that went, okay? And the second one, use the pulpit, because even though I knew the ratings would be way down for post-Labor Day debates, there'd be a lot of people who never watch anything watching this say Project 2025. Mm-hmm. And he didn't do that either, right? Mm-hmm. So there's no sugarcoating how bad Thursday was. But with me watching it, I want to bring you guys into my head. In my head, I know that it's almost impossible to change the nominee this late into the cycle. And the reason, guys, is that the convention process was changed in 1968. They had a big committee after the riots in Chicago called McGovern-Fraser Commission. And part of that project was, how do we prevent a convention ever turning into the kind of, poop show? I don't know if I can cuss, a poop show.
Say whatever the fuck you want on this podcast.
The shit show that happened in Chicago. Because because that helped them lose the presidency, right? They went on, they nominated Humphrey the Law, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, the power has been stripped completely from these conventions. They are like formalization processes. They're not meant to choose a nominee, and they did that so that the power would be in the people, and the people would express that choice through their primary vote, right? So I knew, like, that night, you can't replace Biden, and if there's any path to doing it, it has to be quick, and it has to be to Harris, because you can transfer. We have 159 field offices in operation right now in swing states, folks. It's the main advantage that we have in this fall election to them is organizational. It's the thing that's made me sleep at night. It's the advantage we got with incumbency. And, if we pull our nomination, we can maybe theoretically switch it to Harris, right? But to anyone else, it would be a disaster, both in terms of what will come down the legal road as Republicans try to thwart ballot access. And we have to assume that they would do anything and everything in their power to prevent us from cleanly switching our nominee. And I think anybody who makes an assumption different than that is at their head buried in the sand. They're not going to just say, here, have the ballot in Pennsylvania. They're going to make it very difficult. So Harris is the only real viable switch. But even then, we are making a major disruption. So the problem, of course, is that I know that, but the New York Times, people with big audiences don't know that. People, you would think like people with Nate Silver would know that. I think he just chooses to ignore that because he must know it. Right? This is logistically difficult. So now, 10 days in, Andy, you're asking me, how are things going? And I'm going to tell you exactly how I predicted that night in my brain. Terribly, because what people want is simple to them. They want to change the nomination because they see that we're going to lose, and they can, they're in their mind, they can see the train tracks coming off the edge of the track. And this is, the easy fix it. Okay. But like the inside part of that fix is it's very dark and full of terror, the switching of the nominee. Right. So now we're kind of in this perfect storm where if it doesn't happen, and it's not going to happen, because the first and most foremost thing you would need is Joe Biden's 100% commitment to exiting and promoting somebody else. And as they've pushed him, he's become only more, that's how stubborn people are, right? Only more centered and staying. And so we're really in the worst of all worlds. But, what I'm trying to convince people is I don't get the surrender Cobra posture. Okay. I don't get it at all. This is the weakest Republican Party we've ever confronted. It is the party of Insurrection Dawn, Project 2025, banning abortion, banning IVF, stealing your freedom. I mean, we should be on offense. And then, I'll hear people say, well, they're going to run these ads and they're going to tie everyone to Biden. And I'm like, exactly. And that's why we need to be tying them to Trump. And they're more unpopular. Biden is old and may die in office. Donald Trump is evil and will never leave office. Do you see the difference, right? So it's really an impossible scenario. Unfortunately, the public's never going to really understand if Joe Biden doesn't leave, why he didn't leave. They're going to think it's just, digging in your heels and transigence, when really a lot of it is complexity.
And there's so much in what you just said that I agree with and want to ask you about. But I want to start off by saying this just appears suicidal, right? Like, I haven't spent decades as a political operative, but I think I'm smart enough to know when both parties are attacking the same candidate, that candidate will not win. Am I wrong?
You're not wrong, okay? Because, the basis of my book is if Republicans are attacking you and you're attacking you, who's attacking Republicans, right?
Seems logical to me.
It's very logical.
And the other thing, you mentioned Kamala Harris, which I totally agree with. But I also agree with it for other reasons, too. It's like all we hear about is how Joe Biden and, by extension, the Democratic Party has a problem with the coalition, in particular, young voters and voters of color. Now I say, okay, not to spoil the fun with all the Gavin Newsom fantasizing and Josh Shapiro and Gretchen Whitmer and God knows who else. Play this out for a second. We're going to go to the black lady and tell her to move aside because we've decided we'd rather have a white man or a white woman. Now, that seems suicidal to me, too. No?
It seems suicidal to you, Andy, because it 150% would be absolutely suicidal, okay? And, that's why, I was like, oh, okay, I better make sure, too, if we're going to have a conversation about switching, it's not going to be to your dream ticket, folks. Okay. Everyone's got a dream ticket. I've got a dream ticket. You've got a dream ticket. Problem is everybody's dream ticket is different. Okay. So there's that. You have the shit show that would result in us fighting that out. But to get to any of those dream tickets, you have to understand there are millions of black women whose dream ticket is Kamala Harris. And I hang out a lot with black women. Let me tell you, dude. I mean, I tweeted out, I'm like, dude, I'm white as snow, but I'm here to tell you, if you were to say, hey, we're going to broker a convention and we're going to install Whitmer and Shapiro and kick the vice president, whoever the vice president is in that scenario, you would be screwing their constituency. So if you think about how this goes, you've got there's a stellar Biden base that's going to be mad if it's not him. Then you would be adding on top of that this Kamala Harris base that would be very, very mad. You're not winning any elections in that scenario, folks. We're not the Republican Party. And I realized last night, I tweeted this out. I was like, oh, I get why all the never Trump white guys think we can skip Harris and install Whitmer and Shapiro and have this magic ticket. It's because they're used to being from Republican politics where you could do that. You could do literally anything to the Republican base. Okay. You could steal their fucking lunch money and they would vote for you in November. Okay. But that's not how the Democratic coalition exists. It doesn't exist that way in data, in behavioral data, right? That I'm not going to go into detail to prove my case, but I'm here to tell you that kind of party loyalty is not a thing that Democrats have. Obviously, because here we are on day 11, and my position always was, don't shit on your nominee in public. Today, Joe Biden is your nominee. So what you should be doing is talking about Project 2025 and Insurrection Donald, okay? Don't talk about Joe Biden, how he's old, how he can't do it, or should he drop out, because every time you do, if he's still the nominee, our whole goes boom, 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 boom.
Right.
Okay?
It's just common sense.
It's common sense. It's discipline too, right? So we can have our feels. I have feels. I have all kinds of feels. I just don't lay them out on Twitter on debate night so that I can add to a narrative that's going to bury the one guy that can save the
Well, that's really the main point, and that is the question I keep asking when I see people doing this. Is what is the point? What is the point? Children may look at a vanilla ice cream pop and whine, "I want chocolate." Adults go, the man has said he's not going anywhere. He is the candidate. So now this is a clear binary choice between Trump and Biden, and I better pick my fucking big boy or big girl pants up, suck it up, hold my nose, do whatever I need to do. But the choice is Biden or Trump. And the more I attack Biden, the more I help Trump. That is simple, period. Any adult.
Andy. You just did all my work for me.
I know, but you validate me. You validate me, Rachel.
Well, you're validating me right now too, and I have to tell you, it's a real relief. I mean, I'm trying to do as much media as I can, especially media that touches, the Democratic coalition, and be like, look, dude, Donald Trump is a 34-time convicted felon, known rapist. I mean, the Epstein files have come out. He's on the Epstein plane 79 times. Focus
sex trafficking.
On the opposition.
I was watching, as I often do when I'm working and prepping for an interview, whatever. I have cable news on in the background. This morning, I literally had MSNBC on all morning. Trump gave a rally last night where he was ranting again about Hannibal Lecter, bacon, all kinds of crazy shit. I never heard of NATO until I became president. I'm not exaggerating. Not one vowel of coverage. All morning long. Nothing but Biden should quit. Biden should quit. He's a maniac. And yet it's like, you know what? That's just Trump. Let's just fixate obsessively on Biden. And they've normalized him.
A redux of that 2016 emails thing, right? Because it's the same exact thing that you're describing there, Andy. It's 24/7 coverage of Hillary Clinton, her server, and the emails in Benghazi. And zero coverage of the crazy shit Donald Trump says.
Right.
Zero, right? And here's the other thing. You can strip away all those other liabilities that you and I have laid out, the felonies, all of it, right? The insurrection, and just go down to one area, mental fitness for the job. So we're going to have this giant conversation about Joe Biden and whether he's mentally fit to be president. Then fine, I'll welcome that conversation if it includes the additional question of, does a man, I've posted transcripts of his stump speeches. He's obviously not mentally there, right? And it's just amazing to me that the media has piled on to go down this way, because I think they must think that, all of the concerns that people like you and I have are overplayed. I'm telling you, they're not overstated concerns. They went all whole hog and told us exactly what we're going to do. We're going to put you, and then we're going to round up the media and arrest them. My God, you would think that they would sense some sense of survival instinct kicking in.
Right. Even just be selfish. Be selfish. Concern yourselves with the media. Cover Project 25. Cover the promises of revenge and retribution and dictatorship. Like, it is astounding to me. I don't understand it. And like the New York Times editorial board, I tweeted to them the other day out of just absolute frustration. And I said, okay, what you wrote is that Biden needs to step out for the good of the nation. If that's what you really felt, then you should be calling for Trump to quit, not Biden. Yes. And
they never did.
Where's this balance? Where is the balance? So look, I have spent 11 days going, I watched that debate like everybody else. I was horrified. I got 8,000 texts within 13 fucking seconds of that debate going, we're fucked, we're screwed. I get it. And I agree with all of it. But then I also watched the next 11 days. And I watched him on the campaign trail. I watched him at rallies. I watched him go to 10 different cities. I watched him give an interview, which was pretty good, with George Stephanopoulos. I watched him call in and listen to him to Morning Joe for 18 or 22 minutes, whatever that was. I watched him on the global stage at the NATO summit. I watched him this morning with union leaders, and I go, it's starting to sound like, maybe it was just a really shitty night, and that all of you guys who were in this feeding frenzy, maybe you didn't really like him before the debate. Maybe you didn't really want him before the debate, right? Maybe this was like a silver platter. This was handed to you, and you can't let go. No matter, he could find the cure for cancer tomorrow, and I still think there'll be debate.
Oh, you're not wrong, dude. I mean, you're absolutely. And here's the thing: is like the pile-on came from everyone from everywhere, right? I mean, all of us had our reactions, but it was the people who never wanted him to be the nominee, who had argued he shouldn't run, that we should give up the incumbency advantage. That we'd in their fantasy land, we would have had this great Democratic primary. Well, I'm here to tell you. The optics right now for the Democratic brand aren't good, folks. Okay, between the border shit and Gaza, you guys can imagine in your fantasy land a stage of 10 Democrats during October, November, December, January. Okay, because like in our little bubble world, it's we feel bad for the Palestinians. Da 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 da. In real America, there's very little sympathy for Palestinians. And we would have been on stage. They would have been on stage attacking Genocide Joe, right? Trying to jockey for this base vote on Gaza. And it would have been a disaster. I mean, a total disaster. The optics would have been a disaster. There's American hostages in Hamas hands right out in the real world, right? Mm-hmm. And so you're never going to sell me that the Democratic primary would have been this kumbaya. It would have been a disaster. And, it really frustrates me that the media people that, people who have these large platforms too, also, most of them have no training or expertise, right? So, they don't understand all the interest. To them, it's just a matter of will, right? And so now they have told millions of people, it's just a matter of will. The only reason is that Joe Biden refuses to step down. And, it's every single day of the past 10 days has been a disaster for the goal of winning in November. And not because of what Joe Biden did at debate, but because of how people responded to it.
Given that the stakes are so high, why do you think some Democrats just don't seem to get it? I mean, I've gotten emails like, Sanders-Harris, and I'm like, are you out of your mind? Like, we can't just start over in August. And then the thing that really has irked me the most is when I go, okay, so let me just see if I get this straight from Democrats. You guys, we should get rid of Joe Biden because there's such an existential threat to our democracy from that guy who tried to overturn an election. And we got to do everything humanly possible, including overturn our own election and anoint somebody we like better.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah. That doesn't sound very saving democracy.
The base of the party.
Yeah. That's
right. Because none of their replacement fantasies center around Harris. Have you noticed?
Or democracy. Or democracy. Yeah. I voted. Yeah. I voted for Biden. Who's telling me my vote doesn't count and millions of other votes don't count? That you know better than me.
And here's the thing. Like, if Biden was wiped out tomorrow, you would vote for whoever, right? But here's the problem is that what you just touched on is a fact. When you look at aggregate mass voter behavior, which is my world, right? Mm-hmm. There is going to be a contingent of people who will legitimately feel the thing that you just said. I voted for Biden. Biden's my guy. Mm-hmm. And you ripped him out. There's going to be that. And we're talking 10, 15, 20% of the base Then you want to add on and skip Harris too? And they think we're going to have this, we're going to win? Like who does all the grassroots organizing is people of color, man. Like, especially in states like Georgia, geez, like you can't screw over. And it's not about affirmative action and DEI. I mean, here's the thing is like, Kamala Harris is great. She's completely qualified. She's great. She is great on the stump. She's got a lot of energy. She's a great candidate. We have internalized what they want us to think about Harris, which is that she's incompetent and can't meet the moment. Okay. And what do? We jump right on board. I mean, I have Democrats tell me all the time that Harris is unqualified. And I lay out her qualifications next to Mike Pence's because she's AG Senate. He was in Indiana, House and governor. Okay. Both of them say, you know what I mean? That's a very similar padding of preparation. Okay, guys? And yet I'll explain that to them. And 20 minutes later, they'll say they don't think that Kamala Harris is up to the job. And you know what that is that's it's racism and sexism, right?
Sure,
so
absolutely.
Joe's old. That's his liability. Kamala's liability is that she's going to be a female and she's Black. Okay. And we are dealing against a racist electorate. And that's just a fact, right? So you have to get over those, right? My favorite is like, oh, let's do Buttigieg Harris. I'm like, great. We'll do a gay man and a Black female. Good. We'll make it much easier to win. I mean, come on, guys. Like, it's just not even about us. Like, we literally could nominate a corpse, and we kind of are. Okay.
She said it, folks, not me.
This election needs to be about is not us. Okay?
Right.
It needs to be about them. Every day that the news cycle is about them, we win.
Yes.
Every day that the cycle is about us, we lose. And it doesn't matter if that us is Kamala. And then think about this, Andy, just to tie it in one more point. Switch the nominee. Okay, let's switch the nominee a week from now. It's Harris because that's the only reasonable person you can put in there. Now what happens? The media cycle from now to fall focuses on Harris, focuses on vetting her, focuses on this and that and this. And who are they not talking about? Why they're fixated on vetting this new presidential nominee. They're not talking about Project 2025, and they're not talking about Donald Trump. Either we will have those conversations take paramount of the narrative in suburban Wisconsin, suburban Pennsylvania, suburban Virginia, suburban Georgia, suburban Arizona, and we will win, or we will lose because those suburban neighborhoods do not hear that they are under attack, their own personal freedom under attack by a radical Republican Party.
And you know what else is those critical swing voters, the ones we need in those 7 or 8 states. We're telling them, we're literally some of us, not me, not you, are literally telling them, you know what? Vote for Trump because even we think Biden is unfit. Even we're trying to get rid of him. So why should you vote for him? Right?
No shit. That's why I needed a Xanax on debate night so bad.
I need one
I really
now.
needed I need a bottle of Xanax.
I've been smoking crack straight since the debate. So here's the thing. The other thing I don't understand is, okay, so he's too old. He's too weak. His mental acuity is diminished. He can't win. He won't be Donald Trump. Guess when we heard that? 2020.
Yeah.
2020.
Yeah.
We heard all the same shit. And what did he do then?
And here's the difference, though, Andy, is the in-party, out-party difference. But here's the true fact that any real analyst would be able to tell you. We have never run a former president against an incumbent president. It's never happened. We're in completely uncharted territory. And when you study empirically presidential campaigns, it's a real challenge to model because your end case, the number of cases is so limited. It's like 35 cases, right? Because many presidents serve 2 terms. So we don't have hundreds of data points to model. We only have a few. And now we have one of this, 40 n-size 40 data set where an incumbent president is going to go against a former president. We've never seen it happen. The polling data for me at this point until Labor Day is really reflective of in-party, out-party effects. And, once the campaign starts in Labor Day, and we now know, we can start it earlier, but that doesn't mean the public's going to tune in because the debate audience was 20 million less than it was for the fall debate in 2020. Okay. Because we tried to do it in June.
So in our last
like,
minute or two, where do we go from here? What's next? He said he's staying.
Yeah.
There's still new people now, Senator Bennett, Sherrod Brown, whatever, calling from the quit. Like, what happens now?
What personally should happen if you hear our voice, me and Andy here, is, don't shit where you eat. If Joe Biden's the nominee, and he is today, you should be selling him and shitting on Donald Trump. If the nomination happens to change, great. Okay. But don't be part of that public shitting on, especially because he may not leave. So every time you shit on him, it's going to collect. Okay. So don't do it and just wait. And if you get a different nominee, great. But if you do not get one, don't make the one you have even less electable through your own actions.
Sage advice, and I hope people really, really listen to you. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your insights into this really important conversation right now and potentially dangerous situation that's brewing here.
I'm
I really
so
appreciate
glad
it.
that you turned the focus on it, Andy, and I'm going to help you promote this because it's just so important of a topic.
All righty. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. This episode of The Back Room was edited and produced by me, Andy Ostroy. It was co-edited and co-produced by Maddie Rosenberg and co-produced by Jen Hammoud. Our theme song was composed by Andrew Hollander, and our logo was designed by Cricket Langell. And special thanks to Patricia Wind. Please take a moment to rate and review the podcast, and also follow or subscribe. Until next time, keep your eyes on Washington, Hollywood, and your own backyards, and have a great week.